Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. We are looking to finish the year strong after a couple soft months where I couldn't cover new kits. But today we have Sana Starros kits reveal to handle. We'll do the insights, the analysis, think about some potential synergies, cover the monthly calendar, and then wrap up with the free-to-play gearing of our roster as we typically do. With Sana Starros, we've got ourselves a good amount of tags: an attacker, leader, scoundrel, smuggler, which hints at some plug-and-play viability, which I think her kit proves out. Synergies we are going to tackle later in the video after the kit breakdown. But insights, something we used to do the same way after the kit, but with how CG does things these days, we'll be doing it right now. Key attributes and strategy tips are really the only things we're going to want to be highlighting here. With the key attributes, I like the changes CG has made. It's much more streamlined, just straight bullet points instead of a bunch of extra fluff. So the gist here is she's going to be great at cooldowns. She's going to be increasing crit damage. Rebel Scoundrel tanks are getting tankier. She is boosting health and is going to provide a mechanic for stealth rebel allies to assist. With the strategy tips, what we are seeing are an emphasis here on the target lock mechanic and an extra note that some characters really love: suspicious. The strategy tips I think are worth highlighting a little bit more because that tends to be a little bit more important to getting the full use out of her, whereas the key attributes, that doesn't need to be in every squad to see some good usage. We're going to just skip right down into the kit now. Now for a streamlined breakdown of the kit. Basic cheap shot. Physical damage to the target. Inflict vulnerable. If the target already had vulnerable, then AoE inflict a vulnerable instead. Vulnerable, that's that debuff which guarantees the next hit to be a crit if allowed. This is the debuff that SWGOH self-inflicts to make himself get crit, which is a mechanic in his Omicron. So taking advantage of this is clearly going to be a critical part of her mechanics for it to be laid out in her basic like this. Crits are going to be abundant. Next up, first special, Lessons in Coercion. This is a 4-turn cooldown, so that's a big one. Rebel Scoundrel tanks recover 20% protection, cleanse non-tank rebel allies and Sana, and they gain crit chance up and stealth for 2 turns. Then stealth allies mass assist with 100% crit damage. So this ability, again, has a big cooldown. Relevant, but hardly difference-making protection recovery. So the stealth mechanic with the mass assist is what this ability is going to be about. It's a damage ability that soft taunts the tank and heals them up a bit in order to better handle the extra attention they get after this turn. And now we're actually going to skip the second special, Smart Targeting Scatter Blaster, because I think in order to really break this down, we got to do the leader first. I almost considered doing this entire breakdown with the leadership first, but this is a bit of a mouthful, so bear with me here. Even as I try to streamline these kits, this is a tough one to really simplify. So Rebel Scoundrel tanks have plus 30% defense, health, protection. And they gain 15% turn meter whenever a non-tank rebel ally or Sana is damaged by an attack. So that's somewhat similar to what Stormtrooper Han is doing and being able to give that to any other Scoundrel tank, which for now is only Cara Dune. Rebel allies and Sana have plus 30% offense and potency, and at the start of the battle, Rebel allies and Sana gain protection up until they use an ability. So basically until their first turn. That was just the first block of text. For the second paragraph, whenever a rebel ally or Sana has less than 100% turn meter and they gain bonus turn meter, they will gain in addition 25% crit damage stacking until they crit an enemy. But crits are going to be pretty abundant, so there's not going to be a huge opportunity to get a ton of crit damage stacking before you ultimately crit someone. So that's somewhat mitigated by how abundant crits are going to be. Next, if a rebel scoundrel removes turn meter from an enemy, that enemy also takes damage equal to 20% of their max health, which can't be evaded or defeat the enemy. That's pretty sizable. There are two scoundrels I think that are particular to note here, Han and Cara Dune. We'll talk more about that in the synergies portion. Next, the first time each turn rebel allies and Sana deal damage more than once, they gain 25% max health, stacking max 200% for the rest of the encounter. I think that portion here is really a hint of things to come. There aren't a lot of things within these characters' kits that are going to trigger this effect, and the existing rebel scoundrels, it's a little limited. Whenever rebel allies or Sana critically hit an enemy, they inflict target lock, which can't be evaded. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with target lock, reduce rebel scoundrel tanks cooldowns by 1. This portion here is why we skipped the special ability. It's because of the target lock mechanic. So when they are critically hitting enemies, they will be target locked. From the basic, we know that vulnerable is going to be inflicted, which is basically guaranteeing that characters will be crit. So target locks are going to be spreading very quickly as long as you are careful to use the basic ability on somebody who already has vulnerable, which shouldn't be too difficult to do. So there's a lot here, but the main points to be aware of are the extra stats. Tanks get tankier, rebel allies will be getting offense and potency, and that potency in particular is going to help make sure vulnerable gets inflicted and help the team do some big damage. The crit mechanics and how they tie into target lock and cooldowns on tanks will be how you want to play any squad that she is leading. The big thing is the ability hints at things to come. I don't think the ideal squad for her to lead exists yet, and it will be revealed later. I'm also wondering if dual tanks might be a way to go with this squad. With the Omicron, it is a territory war Omicron, so not what I'm likely to put on, but I think it's still going to be pretty effective, especially up against Empire teams, I think. Rebel Scoundrels and Sana are immune to daze, so that it will be assisting the way that they want to. At the start of the battle, you're going to get a pre-taunt, so Scoundrel tanks will be taunting. Rebel Scoundrels and Sana start with tenacity up, so they will be harder to control, in addition to the protection up that they're starting with. Target lock can't be resisted from this ability. I think this is going to be a big one. That means tenacity up is going to be less effective at controlling this squad, and it means that the scoundrel tanks, the rebel scoundrel tanks, are going to have their cooldowns reduced pretty consistently, which doesn't matter so much for Stormtrooper Han, but it does help Cara Dune out a lot, which means Cara Dune can be using her AoE ability, which stuns Empire, and that will mean Empire teams will probably just be stunned pretty constantly. The final portion here, Rebel allies and Sana, whenever they deal damage to multiple targets in a turn or multiple times to a single target, dispel all buffs on all enemies. So an AoE buff dispel and inflict healing immunity. So that's another thing that ties into Cara Dune again, is that when she's going to be just spamming her AoE ability, and that will be stunning Empire, dispelling any buffs they get, and inflicting healing immunity. Should be pretty effective up against a variety of Empire squads. And now we can head back up to the second special, Smart Targeting Scatter Blaster. Target lock was the mechanic I wanted to cover first before we broke down this special. It's a 3-turn cooldown, AoE special damage, and inflict tenacity down, then deal damage to all target locked enemies and inflict stagger on them. So think of this as similar to Mara Jade, where the inflict tenacity down is a big part of this ability because it will help set up the following turns to inflict vulnerable and increase crits. There could be multiple ways to play this. Maybe you're going to want to try and inflict vulnerable, get the target locks before you throw this ability so you can hit stagger, or you can start off with this ability, land the tenacity down so it's much easier to be landing vulnerable, landing target locks, and then getting this ability to ramp up its efficacy in the second or third use of it. Now we will finish off her kit with the unique ability, A Professional I Can Trust-ish. Sana has plus 35% counter chance and plus 20% crit chance at the start of each rebel ally's turn whenever Sana evades an attack or whenever Sana attacks out of turn. All non-scoundrel allies are inflicted with Suspicious. Sana assists whenever a non-attacker rebel scoundrel uses a special ability. So tanks, healers, support characters. So whenever she's assisting those characters, whenever tanks, healers, or support characters are using a special ability, Sana is inflicting Suspicious. So under the right circumstances, if you're not filling out the squad with too many attackers, Suspicious can be consistently applied. Suspicious will be reducing speed by 10%, and it increases critical chance by 100%. And that's only on non-scoundrel allies. So that's going to be your Rolos, your Bigs, your Wedge, your those characters. Whereas your Stormtrooper Hans, your Cara Dunes, your Landos, they aren't going to have the Suspicious, I'm guessing, blue buff applied. Sana will, in addition, whenever she's assisting, she recovers 20% protection, and rebel allies will recover half that amount. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with target lock, Sana gains turn meter. So with all the assisting that she has the potential to be doing, and I think should be encouraged, she's going to be helping the survivability, and with the amount of crits that are going to be going around, she's going to be taking a good amount of turns because it's going to be pretty easy for her to get a lot of turn meter. This is a pretty fantastic, unique ability. It's an ability that feeds into her leadership with that target lock synergy, but it also makes her a nice character to throw into any squad. Suspicious is just another ability that is adding to her crit hit and damage mechanics that are pretty much everywhere in her kit. A lot of it is just saying use Rolo, and there's a good amount of plug and play viability here where she is adding a lot of recovery to any squad that you add her to. She doesn't have to be the leader to provide that survivability mechanic. And so we've teased these synergies a lot, but we've been teasing the synergies. Now let's get into it. Rolo, Captain Han, Lando, Stormtrooper Han. Usually this stuff always be a little suspicious of it, but in this case, Rolo and Stormtrooper Han seem pretty clear. Captain Han does make a little bit of sense. We'll talk about it. Lando, I think, is pretty unlikely to be part of this squad, although you could use him. Excessive AoEs are always fun, but not the way that I think I'm going to be playing this. We will start with Rolo because she is clearly intended to function along with Sana Starros. The Suspicious is really named for her, for this synergy. It's Leia who is the one who is being suspicious with Sana. And the big thing here is the Rebel Barrage ability. When it is critically hitting, it is reducing cooldowns. And if you've ever gone up against a well-modded version of this squad, she can do a lot of Rebel Barrage use. And with Sana Starros, Rolo could potentially be constantly using that ability. On top of that, the leader on Rolo is not really any good. So there's no loss in not using Rolo as a leader. And what it does mean is I'll probably be putting on her Zeta just for the extra offense. It's going to make her more effective in this scenario. That was never really worth it to me before. Now, good enough reason. Captain Han, I don't really think is going to be part of the squad, but he could function decently because he is a support character, which means Sana will be assisting anytime he uses a special ability, and he has 2 special abilities. But the problem is those special abilities have big cooldowns, so it's not going to actually happen all that much. It's nice that he has a revive and he has a heal, but with the amount of recovery that is going on and the extra stats with tanks, you really don't want to have to use a healer, and he just eats up a spot. I really don't like him as part of this squad. I think it's more likely he's left out. Lando makes a lot of sense. He has that double down ability that's always been a spam ability where it resets its cooldowns whenever it gets more than 1 critical hit, which is going to be pretty consistent with Sana. He's going to always be getting more than 1 critical hit. My issue here is I don't know if the 30% extra offense and the crit damage stacking mechanics is going to be enough to make Lando enough of a damage dealer, because right now he's not even close. It's possible. I'm not convinced it's there unless another character is added which boosts offense even further. That could happen. The other thing I don't like is that he has that attacker tag, and you want Sana assisting. She's only going to be assisting when it is non-attackers using specials. That's not going to apply to Lando. And there's already 2 attackers on the field with Sana herself and Rolo. We know one of those slots is, at least for right now, going to be Stormtrooper Han, and probably semi-permanently going to be Stormtrooper Han, which means those 2 final slots, I don't know if I want another attacker in them. It's going to just depend on how much damage Lando can pump out. Stormtrooper Han is the most likely Han to be on this squad. He has nice little mechanics here. I'll be putting on this Zeta, which will make him even tankier, but he removes turn meter from each enemy at the start of the turn. He recovers protection, has a chance to remove turn meter from each enemy when he is damaged. So he can force taunt himself with the draw fire ability, so he'll be able to taunt pretty frequently. It's a big 4-turn cooldown ability, so it's going to turn this into the target lock mechanics will make it so he can use this much more often, but also when he's not taunting, the stealth mechanics will make it so that he's soft taunting through everyone being under stealth. And when he is taunting, though, all the other allies will be gaining turn meter when he is damaged. Those are nice little mechanics that are going to tie in nicely to this squad. But right now, Stormtrooper Han is kind of really nice under an Akbar squad. And with Akbar, especially with the Omicrons and paired with Leia, because we really can't talk about Akbar and Leia without them being a package deal these days. But this is the first plug-and-play location where I think Sana is going to shine. He's a support character. He has multiple special abilities, which is going to make it so Sana is going to assist frequently. With Sana's unique ability, she's going to be further adding to the recovery and survivability mechanics of this squad. The mechanics are there where I would not be surprised to see this squad plus Sana to be a very strong Grand Arena squad with the double Amis. This squad, Akbar, Leia, Stormtrooper Han, that's already a very strong and annoying core. I've gone up against it a couple times. Adding Sana Starros to that is just going to boost all the things it already does well and make it even stronger. Cara Dune is going to be pretty effective under this squad, although it's going to be tough to pull Cara away from a Mon Mothma squad because her synergies with Kyle Katarn are so strong, but particularly up against Rebel squads, This is going to be an interesting flex option. Improvised strategy. This is an ability that Cara Dune is going to be able to pretty close to spam with the target lock synergies. So she'll be able to stun Empire enemies, but she's also one of the few Rebel Scoundrel characters who removes turn meter. We are going to talk about the other one in just a moment, but remember, when you remove turn meter and you're a Rebel Scoundrel ally, you're also doing max health damage, 20% max health damage. So this AoE plus max health damage ability is going to be pretty effective, and that alone is going to make it pretty desirable to be trying out Cara Dune on these squads and see what happens. The only issue, and this is why I think there's going to be a dual tank scenario, she's not going to tank in the same way because her taunt is from her basic ability, and under this scenario, Cara Dune needs to have a Rebel ally in the leader slot in order to taunt, because then the stealth will be lost and converted to a taunt under a Rebel ally, and Sana herself does not have the Rebel tag. Now Han is the other Rebel Scoundrel who can remove turn meter. He does it on the basic ability, and so with this, remove turn meter and do that 20% max health damage. That is going to be pretty huge, very desirable, might create some fringe counter or at least weird counter scenarios. Problem is, you got to break up a CLS squad to do it, and that's never desirable. And the way CG tries to do things is make specific squads intended squads. It seems that for the past couple years has been how they've been handling things. So breaking up a CLS squad, I doubt is their intent, although it's going to be able to work. Other thing is, you don't really want to break up Chewie, and I don't know if I want to put Chewie in that squad. Unless CG finds a new home for CLS and Sana becomes the new home for Chewie, Han, like Sana, Chewie, Han, Rolo, Stormtrooper Han, like that seems a little weird to me. So I doubt that's the way CG is going to go. And here's the last guy we got to talk about. We got to talk about Saw Gerrera. There's just not a lot of characters that make sense for a potential future Rebel Scoundrel tank. Saw would make more sense under like a Radis squad or a Rogue One squad, but maybe that's not the way CG is thinking about things, because there's too much going on right now within that leadership, especially with the attack multiple times or do multiple hits of damage, where it's clear there's something else needed in order to fully take advantage of Sana's leadership ability. It's not all there. For the monthly calendar of December, Mara Jade is our login character. It's her 1-year anniversary, so any of you players who don't already have her farmed, on top of her being accelerated, you get a little boost so you can work towards Starkiller, who, for you newer players, I do encourage Starkiller as that first big project over a GL. And Afra is going to be added to that. I think Afra is going to be very similar to Starkiller, where she's completely worth making a priority, even as a single shard farm character at this point. But Starkiller should come first. I think going after, it's a much shorter road to go get characters like that instead of a GL, and you get an impact to your account that isn't quite what a GL is, but it's pretty significant. For the rest of this year, it is December, so we have those extra assault battles. Grandmaster is coming. He's already in the event portion of the game, so you can see the countdown, but it's something I've been waiting for a while now, so I'm looking forward to that. And then all your typical stuff. I'd like some new things in this area, CG. And now for our typical wrap up, the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This is the gearing that I did on September 20th. We'll be pretty quick here. This one's not long. We'll be pretty quick here. This one's not long. This is me easing up Melgus to Relic 5. I like to take test characters in stages so I can better inform you guys what I think about them and what I think those minimum levels of viability are. Not quite ready for Radis at this point. The Profundity was at the end of the month and we were racing towards him. So we take Radis up in preparation for that event. I did unlock it by the end of the month, so you can see with 10 or so days to go, we were 11 shards away, so we were in good position. And I hoard all my gear in advance, so Cassian, Hera, Jin, they were all ready. Taking Radis up 1 gear level, had all those Kairos saved up, and enough inventory where I felt fine adding that expensive gear level for him. I'm in good position for that event. Other than that, a fairly light month. It's just showing where I am in terms of Jabba and those other goals. We will wrap it up there. Very excited for Sana Starros. I think she's going to be a fun character with some great testing possibilities. Right at the start of next Grand Arena, we'll have her ready for some 3-star testing. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.